Okay, in this training, I want to talk to you about growing your company, right? And the three stages to making money, three steps, three stages to making federal revenue. I find that too many people, they're trying to grow their company before they even begin to feed themselves, right? Maybe you're a person who's grown your company and you're thinking about the big picture, but you're not dealing with the little picture and the basic stuff. Today's training is going to be targeted towards business owners in particular, but the tips will be valuable to anybody in any particular role that you're in if you're in sales, because I'm going to talk to business owners about how to make revenue. But when you focus on the big picture of growing your company instead of the little things, it's kind of like on an airplane when you're trying to deal with the child and put a mask on them if you have to put an oxygen mask on instead of putting yours on first. The airline advises us put yours on first so that you're breathing and you're healthy and strong now, and you can take care of the person next to you and make sure that they're safe. Well, the person next to you in this case is your company. And we want to make sure first you take care of you and your family when you have a business within the GovCon space, or really any space, but you want to make sure you take care of you and your family first, then take care of your baby, which is the company, right? If you haven't seen a movie called Moneyball, then go ahead and watch it. It's a great movie. I love it for so many different reasons, but it drives home a point I'm trying to make in today's training about focusing on your first 100,000 before your first million before your first 10 million, right? And so just give you a little scenario of the Moneyball movie. And the part I like is, if you don't know baseball, let me explain it to you in 2 seconds if you don't know, but basically baseball has 3 bases and a home plate. When you get back to home plate, you score. And so you can hit a single and get on first base. But too many people are trying to hit home runs, a ball that goes over the fence, way out in the center field, left field, whatever. And then they can skip all the bases and just run all the way around and score. Moneyball comes back and says, look, it's really hard to find people who can hit home runs, but we can find a ton of people who can get on base. And if one person gets on base, when the next person gets up and gets on base, that person moves forward. And so everybody moves forward a single. And then the next person does. And pretty soon, all 3 bases are loaded. So the next person who hits a single, meaning getting on base, just moves it forward. It's not overly exciting game. It's a game that is consistently scoring. And in your case, it's a game that is consistently delivering revenue. But if you swing for the fences, if you try to get that home run, if you try to just focus on growing your company and getting a big, huge contract or contract vehicle, then you're going to be, popping it up in the air and somebody in the outfield is going to catch it over and over again, right? And so getting on base is a consistent thing. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about today, is this path going forward. And Moneyball lays that out. So it's a really good movie. It's got Brad Pitt in it and Jonah Hill, but it's called Moneyball. So definitely worth watching. Nice, good PG movie. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about, as it relates to this, how to make money with your own efforts, how to make money based on the efforts of your employees, and then how to grow your company beyond 2 million. So the first stage is 1 to 200,000. The second stage might be 1 to 2 million. And the third stage is beyond 2 million. And that's where I want to go. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I am the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I'm excited to have you here today with me for federal sales training, where I teach tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you, the government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. Let's get started with the first of the 3 steps or stages for making money in the federal market. And really, we're talking about when somebody starts a company and they say, hey, I want to go into the federal market. This is what I advise people on how to make money. You don't want to swing for the fences and try for a home run. So the first thing to keep in mind is, when you're coming in as a business, and keep in mind, this training will evolve through the next 20 minutes. So depending on which stage you're at, you should hear a tip that you can take away. But you want to think about initial revenue. If you're not making money right now, then forget about all the big picture stuff. Just think about the first 1 to 200,000, whatever it takes to feed you and your family. Maybe it's 50,000, right? But the idea is, this is the first couple of 100,000. This is what's going to make sure that you don't starve, and you've got the basic money coming in that'll pay for your internet connection, your phone, whatever, the basics of just running a business. If you wanted to use consultants like me or others, right, there's some cost to that. You should be able to have some funds that can pay that. Well, you want to make sure you're bringing revenue in right from the start. And what I like to call this is basically you're just going to go get a job. And I know this sounds weird, but if you went to get a job right now as, let's say, a cybersecurity expert or a elevator technician, whatever it is, if you went to get a job, some company would hire you and give you a job and put you on W-2. The way you make it a federal business thing is you just do it as a 1099 through your company and call it a subcontract, right? And in a minute, I'll tell you how to go get some of those. But really, that's all it is. You're still doing the work. You're the subject matter expert. Generally, businesses are started by people who have an area of expertise. Mine is IT and project management, sales. I can start a company around that and I can keep doing the job. And so in the beginning, you go and get yourself in the door. You're the beachhead. If you've watched previous videos, I've taught this concept of beachhead selling. Get in and then grow. It's just new sales and organic sales is really what that means. But you're the beachhead to where you want to go. So say you want to get into Department of Education, right? You land a subcontract with a company that's already in there where you can go in and start doing some of the work. And now you're building this unofficial, maybe it'll be in CPARs, maybe it won't, but this unofficial past performance that you can start adding to your company's experience because you're doing the job as a subcontractor to company A, who's the prime, and you're company B. But you're just doing it on your own skills, right? You're getting in. This is called working in your business. You're busy working in there. It's not long-term a good idea, but it's excellent idea from a beachhead standpoint to get in. And so Department of Education, you get in, or Department of Homeland Security, you learn their security processes because you have to go through it. You begin to work with the prime and learn how they do their billing and what are some of the challenges that are over there. You begin to learn how your agency like DHS is doing their policies, whatever's going on there. You begin to learn that agency. And this is really important, right? It does two things. It's helping you understand all the aspects of getting into that agency and doing that business, but it also makes sure you're getting money so you're taking care of you and your family. I want to give you a couple of tips here on how you can do this, right? And I'm going to use my fifth company. If you guys don't know my story, I've had 4 companies, and my 2 successful ones are government contracting gigs. And I started a third government contracting gig right before I started the GovCon Chamber. But because of the things I noticed, I decided to shift away from having another business and to start the GovCon Chamber. But anyways, when I started that 5th company, I had about a 90-day window, 90, maybe a 4-month window that I was running it. And I went through, if you ever used to see my old LinkedIn picture, it had all these sticky notes. It was the exact process I followed to stand up my company. And so you stand up your company and you're worried about, hey, do I get into SAM, DSBS? Do I do any kind of certs I might want to do? But I went right to outreach. And here's how I went and got a gig, even though I was experienced, right? And some of you might not be experienced, but I was very experienced, 20 years in the GovCon space. But I still took my hat off my head and went in humble. And when I started this 5th company, I reached out to 50, I think it was like 57 companies that are hub zone companies. I happen to be a hub zone. I started a new hub zone. So I was a hub zone. I reached out to hub zone companies that were in my space. And I said, look, I'm starting a SharePoint company. I have a lot of personal experience and I've been in the federal government space, but my company has no past performance. And I'd like to build, some experience under you, maybe over the next couple of years as a subcontractor where I can work with you and support your team. Would you be open to a discussion about that, right? So I wrote this email and reached out. Nowadays, I would actually recommend you make a phone call first, leave a voicemail, then do the email. But I reached out, and out of 57 companies or so, I got about 28 that got back to me. And of those, about 12 of them were fits for me who were, yes, not only will we have the meeting, we had the meeting, and then we were a fit. And it's like, okay, let's work together. Let's figure out where we could work. And because I had SharePoint skills, I could have easily have taken it to the next level and filled one of their positions. When companies have open positions, what that really means is that they're losing revenue. So even if they want a contract, at some point, they're not going to want to keep it all to themselves if they're not filling the position. That's lost revenue. So if you can show up and be part of the team and add value and help them really look good to their customers, that's a way for them to look good and for you to get that initial revenue. So it will get you in the door and move forward. That's the tip I want you to take away from, how do you feed yourself if you're not doing it? Just go get a job. But in this case, it's so much easier. You don't have to go to Career Builder or something. You go into FPDS and see who's winning. You go into DSBS and see who's a small business similar to what you do. When you do that, you can start making money. So now you got money to go to the next stage. Put feed yourself in the chat, though, if you understand that as a small business owner, it's your responsibility to make sure you're bringing even the basic revenue home to feed you and your family. You can't ignore yourself. Okay, so the second stage that I'm talking about on steps for making money, right? And I just want to come back here because I love this graphic. I'm just going to show it one more time with people who are showing up a little bit late. But this graphic, right? I'm showing these steps. Come on, graphic. There it is. Sorry about that. These 3 steps, right? First, you feed yourself. The second step I want to talk about is have employees feed you. And so what I'm talking about here, if the first stage of your business is to get $100,000 to $200,000 in revenue, so you and your family are eating, right? So you have enough money to pay the rent on both the business and the house kind of thing, because you don't want to ignore yourself. You're not building a strong business with a strong foundation if you ignore yourself, ignore your family. So second step is get fed by your employees. And what this really means is you're living off the profits of the employees. Let's say your profit margin's 10%. Then if you're making $1 million, you got $100,000 that's coming in profit, and that's enough for you to live on, especially if you're living lean and not in some multi-million-dollar mansion. But anyways, you want to live off the profits of employees. This is business. This is normal. You're living off the profits one way or another of your company. If you're selling products, if you're selling services, it's the same thing. You're going to have a profit margin. Just look at that number and decide how much money or how many people do I need working before I can be fed on a consistent basis without having to be billable. That's where I'm transitioning us, right? From working in the business to working on the business. And so in this stage, we're trying to get you out of working in the business being billable. And so I call this stage, when I talk about a money standpoint, I'm talking about your first $1 to $2 million. So if you have a higher profit margin, you might be able to do it for less than 2 million. For me, if I was doing SharePoint, I might feel more comfortable getting to that $2 million stage so that it works well for me and I'm pulling in enough money that I can do what I want to do and feed myself. But the idea is, as you're moving forward and you start your company, you got the beachhead approach and you're trying to decide, okay, how can I grow my company? I have talked before in previous training how you can decide, I want $2 million, like I just said. Well, every employee who works with me will be bringing in $250,000 in revenue. For me, I have $125 flat rate hourly rate for the government. So no matter what I do, I don't waste my time with labor categories. I have one blended rate, and that's it. And it makes it easy for me to do my math. I say, well, $125 an hour times 2 is the annual revenue. That's the typical a tip there. So 250K. What that means is I need 8 people, not 3 to 5 or something, but I need 8 people to be bringing in $2 million, and their profit will generate enough for me to be living on and eating, right? And growing the company where I want it to go. And we can talk about how you spend that money later. But I wanted to give you some stories of how I've done this. I'm not trying to talk conceptual. The first step where I said, feed yourself, I told you a tip on exactly how I went and got in the door on my 5th company. And now I want to back up to the 2 companies before that were government contracting companies and how I did it. So the first one, this one I did when I got out of the Army. And I've been doing this model for 20 plus years now. And so the first company I was working for, I went and got myself a job as a network engineer. I'm an IT guy, so I got myself a job as a network engineer working in GDIT for one of their customers. Long story short, I was able to take over that contract and make it mine. And when I was in there, I built the relationship and the respect. The customer began to know, like, and trust me repeatedly. I was able to prove myself to them that they listened to me. I was a trusted advisor. And so I began to say, well, hey, we've got this other project. Let me bring somebody in. You know what? I don't need to be doing this. Let me bring somebody else to do what I'm doing. And I will and I will make sure I'm here. I'll give oversight. But I began to fill out the positions that I could fit with them. And by doing that, it was a government contractor, large prime, but I was in there doing their commercial or inside work, right? But while I was in there, because I established this beachhead and because they trusted me, I was able to be pulled into government customer conversations. And so in particular, this customer of mine had the Treasury as a customer of theirs. And so I, convinced them through just doing good work that I could have 3 or 4 or 5 people working behind me to take care of their company. Well, I went with them to take care of their customer, the Treasury. And it was the same thing that happened at the Treasury, where I was able to get in with them in the Treasury. And there was this specialty that they did around environmental science, and mine was all around computers, the network servers and all that. And so as they grew their business, I was able to grow my business with them. This is that beachhead approach, right? You get in and you organically start growing. First, you establish the reputation through your own work and hard work, and then you establish it through the people you hire and bring in. But by doing this, I had enough people in both this company. It was called Radian. They've been bought out since then. And the Treasury is actually the IRS project that we were doing, that I backfilled the people in the Treasury and IRS as well. So then I was out and able to start growing my company, which is phase 3. And I'll talk about that in a second. So that was one story where you see that, right? I want to give you another story that was in the last company I had. The way we were able to begin to grow the company was with the VA. So again, we did this by teaming up with somebody. Remember that first step, I said, go reach out to people and say, this is what I'm doing. Can I get experience subcontracting? I was able to do that with another company. And in the VA, where they had the VA as a customer, but they didn't do SharePoint work. I did that. They did software development and some other stuff, but they didn't do SharePoint. And so I established a relationship, and they were happy to meet me, because they're like, oh yeah, we get asked that all the time and we don't do that. It's like, perfect. So I came in and I worked with them for a while doing their contracts, and then bringing some people on to support those. And then from that, and with their agreement, I was able to start going after prime contracts within the VA, where we started growing that as well. And my point here is that if you get in and you establish the relationship with your own expertise in that first stage, in the second stage, you can start growing it through organic growth. You identify needs, you figure out how to backfill yourself, et cetera. So anyways, hopefully that made sense. Do me a favor in the chat, if you're tracking on this, put get fed if you understand this idea that first you feed yourself, then you need to get fed from the efforts of your company, the profit that comes from your products or services being sold. So generally on the people who are working billable, you'll get that profit. So that's really helpful. You're getting fed. Now, because you've done this, it's allowed you to go into this third stage, which is moving completely onto working on the business instead of in the business, right? And here you want to be growing your company. And the reason I actually started doing this training, and I'm going to actually do a much bigger series that's free. I really want to get people to understand, how do you start making your first dollars? But the reason I did this is because this third step is where I often find you are hanging out. Instead of being at the second or first step, which maybe you should be at, we come in and we think, let's grow our company. Let's go into agencies. Let's go after contract vehicles, all these things. And yes, that's attractive. And yes, that's our eventual goal. But that's not the way to go. You go to grammar school, then you go to high school, then you go to college, then you go to the pros, or whatever you do after that, right? And that's all I'm trying to do, is to say each one of them is a stepping stone and helps you learn skills and gain experience, both for yourself and past performance for your company. So for growing your company, when you're on this step, what I'm really talking about is 2 million and beyond. So 2 million and below, I'm thinking about you're still trying to shape your company to this point where you can predictably make money, income, not revenue, income for yourself and your family. You can predictably make that whether you're at work or not, because your company is bringing that in. Now, you can't go away to Maui for too long before the company starts going away. But the point is, now that you don't have to be at work, you can decide to work on the priority project of growing your company. And there's 3 paths that I want you to follow in here when you think about growing your company, and they go in steps as well. And so the first is starting by focusing on one agency. So I used my example by saying I started with the Treasury, in here, but actually it was in the IRS. And so that one agency, you want to go deep. The IRS is spending tons of money that I should be able to get multiple experiences there. And sometimes rather than do the hard work to find it in there, I just keep going to the shiny object that I see. It's like, oh, maybe I can get this one. Oh, this RFP is perfect for me. It's like, no, 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 no. Go grow the relationship, build the experience in that one agency. IRS is under Treasury, right? So just IRS. And what I recommend you do as you're growing strategically is don't go to another agency until you've landed 3 past performances, right? Dig in there. And I'm okay if those 3 past performances are made up of, 1 prime, 2 subs. That's okay. You want to be able to state that I have worked in this agency, but anytime you go after opportunities, they typically are asking for you to have 3 past performances. And sometimes they want primes. And so that's why I'm recommending you dig into a particular agency and go deeper a little bit into the IRS and get 3 past performances in there. Once you have that, you're not abandoning the IRS. You're going to continue working because your ultimate goal is to have at least 3 past performances that are prime contracts within the last 2 years. And I know that sounds like a lot, but it's not that much when you think about that's your 3rd stage of growth. You'll have gotten good at it if you follow this path. But you want to have 3 past performances in the agency before you move to the next level, which is the department. And because I'm using the IRS as the example, I'm not running off to the Department of Homeland Security or VA. I'm going up from the IRS to the Department of Treasury. And now I want you to get 3 past performances within prime past performances within the Treasury. And what that means is 1 can come from IRS and 2 more are from other agencies. These larger departments, when you pick them right, they have the room to grow. Only then, when you have that, should you allow yourself, in my opinion, to go add another agency. Then you can add like DHS or the Army or something. But you want to not give that, you don't want to leave the Treasury until you get some solid past performance, because the reality is your growth is going to come from people seeing you're an expert at what you do and someone has bought it. So the past performance within an agency matters. So this idea of growing your company, I don't want to dig as much into this one as I did the first 2 tips. But keep it in mind, 1 agency, 3 past performances, then go to the department level, 3 more past performances, and then consider adding another department to your pipeline. So put grow your company in the chat if that made sense, what I was talking about there. And just giving you a recap of what we talked about, right? We talked about how to make money on your own efforts, basically getting a subcontract with you doing the work. The second thing is how to make money based on the efforts of your employee. And by the way, if you're somebody who doesn't have that skill set of expertise, you can jump to number 2, but kind of do that as you still have your old job or something. And then the third step is how to grow to a company beyond 2 million. That's working solidly on your business. So the first 2, you're going to be a lot in your business or a little bit in your business, and then you move to on your business. You'll be working on your business. And my tip for you today and for this weekend, as you think about it, is determine what stage are you really at. And then work at the lowest rung of those 3 steps that I said. Work at the lowest step. If you're not making any money, go right back and feed yourself. That's where it begins. If you found value in today's training, do me a favor, throw thanks into the chat. We always appreciate